Hi, I'm Joe Phillips, otherwise known as JoOutLoud, and tonight I have Josh Hall joining us. Josh is awesome. This guy, if you follow him on Twitter, he is an advocate for everyone who doesn't have a voice. Like he's just, in my opinion, badass. I'm excited you're here. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Joe. I'm very excited to be here too. And I guess it bears repeating. I'm used to being the interviewer, not the interviewee. So this is a rare opportunity for me to answer the questions instead of ask them. So I'm
Yeah,
trying to not be nervous.
because if you don't know Josh, Josh is a reporter
hmm
or a journalist. How do you refer to your title?
I think my official job title is news reporter, but I have kind of self-transitioned to the term journalist just because I think it sounds a little cooler.
You have a name tag, Josh Hall, journalist.
I put journalist if I'm sending emails, if I'm making a request, I'll usually say, "Hey, I'm a journalist in Red Deer instead of
Hmm.
reporter," but it doesn't really make a difference, to be honest.
I think I like journalists better. I
Yeah,
would be with you on that.
yeah, yeah.
All right. I'm gonna hit our random age generator. We're gonna find out what age we're talking about tonight.
Okay.
We were joking about Josh getting 15. Oh, this is
Don't say
interesting.
15.
We're not. We're talking about you right now, 31.
Oh, well, lucky me. Well,
Lucky you.
okay. I'm
So
sure we
I'm just,
I'm sure we can
go
still
ahead.
mix in a little bit of the past.
We totally can. Do
Yeah.
you want me to hit the number one more time?
Let's uh let's I think we can stick with 31, and
Okay.
I think we can weave in some past.
Okay. All right. That's because you're a journalist. Yeah. You're like, we can make this a story still.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So 31. The interesting thing with my show so far has been that the age we choose is usually an age where somebody's going through a lot of transition, or it's the place where like their life was just kind of blowing up or big things were happening. So
Hmm.
is it possible that 31 is a transitional age for you?
Very much so. Yeah,
It's
yeah, 100%.
it's crazy to me. Every single time the age has been a transition age. So
I
that's fascinating to me.
I think we're always transitioning a little bit, right? Like
Yeah.
trying to be better, and that
Yep.
involves tweaking things about ourselves.
Yep. And life can change really quickly if we haven't learned that this year, then
Oh yeah.
if there ever was a year. All right. So my first question is, where are you?
Well, I'm in Red Deer. I'm in my home office, which has been my primary domain for the last not are we at month 9 now? I think March to November, that's 8 months. So we're at 8.5 months, I guess. I'm in my home office where I've spent most of my time for the last 8.5 months working. A very small portion of my work has been at our actual office, where the radio stations and the newsroom are. But yeah, I'm here in my home office where I've kind of made it was just a spare bedroom before, but I've kind of, as you can sort of see behind me, I've made it my own little I don't want to say
Somewhat,
man cave, but like my little own fortress of solitude, I guess.
your Fortress of Solitude. Some would say you decorated, but then they would see the Canucks jersey behind you.
you know, I am aware that it's in the background, and that was intentional. I
You
have to
just
reference
own
that.
it, right?
Yeah,
Just own it.
yeah.
How long have you how long have you been in Red Deer?
Uh, so technically, we moved to Lacombe first from BC, but we were only there for 6 or 7 months, and then we moved into Red Deer. So this January will be 6 years since I came to Alberta from British Columbia.
Where did you come from?
Uh, I came from, so I grew up in Surrey, where I spent most of my life, and in the Lower Mainland. But I was at um, a radio job in a little town called 100 Mile House.
Mm.
It's kind of it's about 2 hours north of Kamloops. Probably more people are familiar with Kamloops.
Yeah.
That's where I was. Tiny little place. And
Wow.
this was an opportunity at the time to take a step up.
Those are some scary roads to get there, right? To 100 Mile House.
Oh yeah, well, especially in the winter, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the highway's not that wide going up there. So
Yeah. Cool.
hmm,
My partner, Joe Whitbread, spent some time in a little town up there called Big Bar, I think,
yeah.
kind of in that region. So
Yeah.
weird. All right. So the next question is, what were you doing? But since we're talking about this age, what are you doing right now?
So as we kind of covered a little bit, I'm a journalist in
Mm-hmm.
Red Deer for RD News now. Um, I I am also a father of a 6-year-old girl. So that takes up a lot of my time, and I couldn't be more grateful to have her in my life. And being a dad is the greatest. It's the hardest thing, I think, but it's also the greatest thing. Uh, I'm also, what else am I doing? Well, I'm trying to get through this pandemic like everybody else, relatively unscathed. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we're all kind of experiencing our own struggles right now, and that's that does take up a lot of my energy, is trying to maintain a healthy mental state, and eat right and sleep right,
Yeah.
and just stay even keeled.
And you're a board member as well, right?
uh I recently was on the Trans and Non-Binary Aid Society. I recently left that board, not for any negative reasons, but yes, I was with Tanis for about a year. It's a great organization, some great people. I think the main purpose of Tanis, and whenever we talk about transgender people, and uh, I've written news stories about transgender people, and recently wrote one about the Transgender Day of Remembrance, which was just I should remember the date, but it was last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the main purpose of that group, and whenever, like I say, whenever we talk about that subject, is to educate people. Just the more education and awareness people have that there are many transgender people out there, they just have not been comfortable in coming out for decades and decades.
Mm-hmm.
And now the world is evolving.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's become so much more of a mainstream topic of discussion.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was with Tanis, and they are still going, and they're doing lots of great work in the community. And if you have a chance to check them out, uh, it's TANAS, the Trans and Non-Binary Aid Society.
A great organization.
Mm-hmm.
So you touched on how important it is to really focus on our physical and mental health right now, and doing that becoming a part of our jobs, what we need to be doing in our daily life. Now, you're a journalist, so um, I can't imagine what this year has been like, because journalism has been pummeled from all sides, with the whole fake news brand, plus people who aren't necessarily journalists who are going about spreading news, and then the whole that it's part of your job to actually have to step into the comment section.
Yeah.
How
Well,
do you possibly manage that?
well, you know, the comment section. Well, it comes up every day. uh, we have to be professional, of course, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not too often that we actually comment back. There is somewhat of a duty to not let misinformation and disinformation get too much of a spotlight. And I get messages personally. We get messages, about the comments. There's somebody saying this, somebody saying that, and um, we are in there looking pretty constantly just to make sure that we're not letting that misinformation get around or spread too much, because it can spread like wildfire, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the fake news stuff and the comments, they go hand in hand. We uh, it's really hard sometimes, but we have to kind of have uh, tunnel vision sometimes and just ignore it, because it's a lot of the time it's just noise. Like the fake news stuff has been, I mean, yeah, we do get it. We do get it. I can't deny that, but it is
Mm-hmm.
obviously largely attached to the mainstream media, and I don't think we necessarily fall into that category. But it's seeped down from the top of from where it started. I won't go there, but it's seeped down right to the small community news outlets for sure. And
Mm-hmm.
the biggest thing is sometimes is trying to ignore it, because it's just, there's so many other more important things to worry about. um,
Mm-hmm.
we know we have integrity, we know we have credibility. We just got to do our job and what we know we do well, and just block out the negativity, because
Mm-hmm.
that's the other thing is during this pandemic, like the negativity it's been overwhelming, especially at the start. Like it was every single story, no matter what we were writing, it was to do with COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a lot. It's still a lot. It's just now. It's like the never ending song.
Yeah.
We all wish that this could be over, and
Yeah.
you
That
know
you could talk about something else.
yeah, and
Yeah.
we have made efforts to uh write more good news stories and take
Mm-hmm.
people's suggestions for good news stories.
Mm-hmm.
um and we have tried to brainstorm, what can we write about that is not COVID related, but
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard because the whole
Yeah.
world is COVID right now. And then if there's something bad, we have to report it,
Yeah.
or else there's going to be an outcry about, well, why didn't you report about this thing that is making such big waves? And
Mm-hmm.
then we try to write a good news story, and unfortunately sometimes it gets buried by all the bad stuff, and people then, they it's a I think it's a fact that if you're looking for good news right now on the World Wide Web, do they still
Mm-hmm.
call it that? Uh, if
I'm surprised you know they used to call it that.
Come on. I'm an 80s kid. I was born in 89. Uh,
You're hardly an 80s kid if you were born in 89.
I know. If you're looking for good news right now, you really have to dig for it. And
Yeah.
that's unfortunate, but it's an unfortunate reality. So which is why, we try, like I try to reshare
Mm-hmm.
like a good news story from a few days ago. I'll try and reshare it from time to time just to give it a bit more of a amplification. But
Yeah.
sometimes, most of the time it does get buried, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah. But it's also a pretty cool part of your job that you have the ability to amplify the good news, right? Because if we're not doing it, if the general public's not going to be doing it with their social, as we've seen over the last 8 months, there just really definitely is a lean toward being right and a lot of discord. If you have the ability to be providing that good news, like that's a pretty cool opportunity as well.
Yeah, it is a good feeling to know that your story lifted somebody up. Even even I'll search for good news stories that are outside of our own outlet,
Mhm.
just to cheer me up somehow a little bit.
Well, let me tell you about this guy. His name's John Bon Jovi.
Yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah.
Go search out what he does. He could publish a story every day. I know for sure you'd get one retweet.
Yeah. He does. Yeah, I know he does that kit that I don't know.
Yeah, the Soul Kitchen.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
That's cool.
pretty cool. Pretty cool story.
Hmm.
Are you doing right now what you had hoped to do when you were a kid?
No. When I was a kid, I had no idea that I would be doing this. This kind of came around when I was 19 is when I sort of started doing media-ish stuff. So I could, if you want to talk about the past, I could get into that.
Yeah, because that's 19 is a pretty late bloomer for somebody in journalism. Like usually it's like, oh no, they were always involved. They always,
So yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
I guess I could go. So I could even go further back. Like when I was in grade 12, I took a creative writing in grade 12. That was like it was only 30 kids in my 250 student grad class that got to take that class. I took English honors in grade 12. So I've always had a knack for writing. So, but it was when I was in grade 12, I was not thinking journalism at all. I was actually thinking I wanted to do kinesiology. And then I ended up trying to get into political science. And then that kind of didn't work out. And
Okay, we have to stop there.
okay.
Because kinesiology and political science
No.
aren't even sort of
Yeah.
the same.
Well, so I um I didn't do as well in my science classes in grade 12 as I had hoped I would have if I was going to go for kinesiology. So then I had to switch it up, and I was already involved with this organization called the British Columbia Youth Parliament.
Oh, okay.
So I was kind of, and that's a nonpartisan organization. So that's kind of what led me to poli sci, and so I went to college in BC for a couple of years to kind of start getting credits towards a poli sci program, and for whatever reason, I don't know, whatever was going on in my life, I don't know, I did not do well with a couple of the classes that I was in. And in the meantime, I was so I'm a well, as we've established, I'm a huge Canucks fan. So I was doing these the Canucks had a message board on their website. I think all the teams did. I don't know if they still do, but it was the Canucks message board was pretty well used, and I was a commenter on there. I was commented on everything and anything Canucks, and I decided to start doing these video podcasts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was called, and this is where my Twitter is VanCan19, and
Yeah.
my show, I guess, I called it a podcast at the time, but I realized now it was more like a vodcast or a vlog or
A
something.
vlog,
It
yeah.
would be called a podcast today because it was a video for one, but it was called VanCan Out of the Blue. So
Smart.
Van
So
is for
so if we do the math, this is 2007.
yeah.
Okay.
2008.
Okay.
Yeah. So people always ask, what's VanCan mean? So Van is for Vancouver, and can is because I always like to think that Vancouver can win the Stanley Cup. Yeah, it's it's never happened.
It's never actually happened.
It still hasn't happened, but And the 19 is for Marcus Naslund, who is my favorite all-time Canuck. So I continued doing these podcasts for a couple years, and it got a lot of attention, I guess, at the time. They were posted on the Canucks website. They had this
Oh,
thing called the
cool.
Fan Zone. Um, I was interviewed by Deborah Hope on Global News about the Canucks, like at one time, because I was doing this podcast. Um, and and then somebody said, well, you should, I think it was my mom actually. She said, well, you're not going to school right now. You've been doing these videos for a couple years. Why don't you try broadcasting school? And so I applied for this broadcasting school in Vancouver called Columbia Academy, which is now called Van Arts. And as opposed to my grades in the poli-sci portion of my schooling, it went really well in broadcasting school, and here I am.
And that's a lesson to young folks who think you want to do, you know what you want to do when you're 17, right?
No, there's a huge chance it's not going to go the way you think it's going to go.
A huge chance. And also, like, how awesome is that there were people that were willing to give this kid an opportunity, like that they put your stuff on their website, and that they didn't look at you like super fan and didn't want to talk to you, and like helped you and engaged with you, and that you were able to get success like so young. That's pretty cool.
I got a lot of negative comments. YouTube back in 2008, it was just as bad as Twitter and Facebook comments can be these days. But it was really cool that the Canucks did that. I'll always have them to thank for kind of kickstarting my career, I guess. It was fun. All those videos that I did are still on YouTube, and from time to time I go back and watch one, and I want to cry because they're so cringeworthy. So I mean, anybody can. They're not profane or anything, or they don't go against any. They don't violate any kind of rules. So if you really want to go look them up, it's the same handle as my Twitter, but be prepared that it's going to be a little bit cringeworthy.
So now you have something to do next weekend instead of Netflix. You're totally getting harassed in the comments section. Michelle says it's great that you still have dreams, or maybe believe in magic fairy tales about them winning the cup. So yeah, you're getting harassed.
I'm used to living in Alberta for 6 years now.
Would you change it to Van Dit 19?
If they won? No, I mean, I'd have to keep it. I've built like I don't know. I shouldn't say quite a brand, but it has been my identity online, is what I'm trying to say, for over a decade. So I don't think I'll ever change that. And that was even a discussion we had when I started my job here, was, should I be changing my Twitter handle to, Reporter Josh or something?
Yeah.
But I insisted on keeping it as it is because of how long I've kind of had that online identity.
Yeah, I understand that. I wouldn't go from JoOutLoud. Like, it's just, yeah, it's just, you're stuck with it. And I'm not really going to be quiet. So, all right. When you picture yourself walking down the street in your head, how do you look?
I don't know. Like, I don't know. I think I kind of look like a weirdo. I don't know.
Do you have like a bunch of equipment with you, or you?
You mean when I'm like doing news, like I'm out for a news thing, or?
Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah. When you're out for work.
Usually I'm not carrying too much equipment, unless we do have a bigger camera that we got last year that we haven't used it much during the pandemic, but for bigger news events, we do take that out. But I'm usually, maybe a pen and a notepad and my phone. that's how I record all my interviews, whether it's with the microphone app or on video. But I'm pretty casual. I don't need to carry too much stuff, and when I do, it's not fun because usually if there's something, say at City Hall, and I gotta walk around a big crowd, if I'm carrying a bag full of gear, then that's just not fun.
And so when I worked in Red Deer, I work in Lacombe now, but when I worked in Red Deer, we used to walk because I wasn't willing to pay for parking, but our office was downtown. So we would park where it was free and we would walk. And
Yep.
somebody tweeted me and said, it looks like you were having a bad day. I just wanted to send you a tweet and say, like, I'm thinking of you. And I was like, why did you think I was having a bad day? I'm having a great day. And she said, well, you and Joe, you were frowning while you were walking. And I was like, oh, wow. Like just even when I'm walking, because I am a recognizable person often. So even when I'm walking, people are aware of what I'm doing. And do you find that, like, let's say you're at City Hall for an announcement, do you have to carry yourself in a way that that you've learned to be aware of?
I think when if there's a large crowd at City Hall for whatever reason, and that's happened many times for a wide variety of things, I kind of have to ignore the crowd. Sometimes I'm weaving in and out of between people. Sometimes I have to, for anybody who's familiar with City Hall Park, when there's a crowd there, like you have to go around, or you have to go up a ramp to get to the other side. And sometimes I just have to ignore, and I have to go in front of people to get a picture or a good shot, or if one of the things is like when an event is over and speeches have been said and everything's done, and people who were attending want to speak to the person who was presenting, but I need an interview. So I have to, and I don't have all the time in the world. Like, we have deadlines sometimes, and sometimes it's really cold out. So sometimes I have to be a little budgy, or I have to cut in sometimes, or insist that I can get an interview. So yeah, I think that's probably in terms of behavior, when I'm at an event like that, it's kind of just ignoring the crowd. I have to do my thing. If people are wondering who's this guy running around snapping pictures and cutting in front of me, well, I'm just doing my job. Usually I have a jacket or a hat on with our logo, so people can put two and two together.
And do you ever have trouble with compartmentalizing? Like you're at an event, you're there as Josh Hall, the journalist, you're there to get the story, and you're very focused on that. You have to get in, you have to get angles and all of that stuff. And then there are people who know you, but they're peripheral people, like they're acquaintances. And they're like, hey, Josh, like, is that difficult for you to to split that or to like negotiate that?
Yeah, I do see people that I know quite a bit at those kinds of things. Like being at City Hall for something is probably the best example, where there's often lots of people like I said, for a wide array of different things. But if people when I have experienced people seeing me, they know what I'm doing, so they are aware to not, try.
Don't get in the way.
They don't get in my way.
Don't get in Josh's way when he's going for a story.
Exactly. Yeah.
Murray has a question. He says, is it legal to take a picture or make a video of anyone, anywhere, anytime?
I don't know the actual answer to that. But I will say, and I'll go back to City Hall again, because it's the easiest example. If you are going down to City Hall Park for a public event, whether it's a rally or a protest or a vigil, if you're down there, you it's pretty common sense to know that that event is probably going to be something the media is at. It's in a public place. It's being attended by many members of the public, and the media is going to be there taking photos. You know, if I'm taking a pan shot, like a video, for example, of a whole crowd, I mean, it's really hard to it's not really hard. It's impossible to go
Mm-hmm.
and ask every person, "Hey, are you okay if I use this photo or video of you?" Now, the one exception that the one thing I will make an exception for usually is kids. I'll usually ask, like, I'll approach the parent and I'll say, "Hey, I'm with the news. Do you mind if I take a photo of or a video of your kid for our news story?" And usually that kid is holding a sign or something that says something interesting, or I mean, it could be a visual,
Mm-hmm.
and a kid kneeling down by a candle. That's a powerful image, right? So
Yep.
usually I haven't really ever gotten. I don't think I've ever been told no, because people, when I've asked if I could use a photo of somebody or take a photo of somebody, I'm sure it'll happen one day, but I haven't really experienced many no's in terms of that, because people do know that they're in the public sphere, and the event that they're at is obviously going to have attention from the media.
Yeah. Good answer.
Thank
Are you living your biggest dream right now, Josh?
you. Uh, Honestly, no. But don't get me wrong. Like, I'll just so no. The short answer is no, but the long answer is that I'm happy doing what I'm doing right now. I don't. I'm not. I'm not. It's not that I'm not trying to better myself or become a better journalist, or find opportunities within my current job.
Mhm.
But I enjoy what I do, and I'm not looking to go leave Red Deer anytime soon. Just to be clear, but my goal, my dream job has always been to cover the Vancouver Canucks.
Weird.
Yeah, shocker. Um, beyond an amateur
Mhm.
YouTube podcast that I did. I don't know if that will ever happen. Never say never. Uh, that's always been my dream, but who knows? I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Nobody. I
you
don't.
still have like 50 years to get that done. So
Yes, exactly.
so much time.
Well,
What I think is really cool about our biggest dreams is that we think that, like you're saying, like, I don't know if that's attainable. But the coolest thing is that once you attain that, which you probably will if that's something you really want to do, but once you attain it, then you look around and you're like, well, that actually wasn't really that hard to get here. And it makes everything else possible. Like once you achieve that biggest dream that you have, usually in your 30s, or you accomplish something really cool, then all of a sudden you realize like there is no bar anymore.
mm-hmm.
So I would say I'd be interested in you at 51 looking back saying, oh, Josh at 31, his biggest dream, and then looking at where you've actually landed. It'll be interesting.
Hopefully the pandemic is over by then.
Oh, if you're still covering the pandemic when you're 51, then you're not living your biggest dream.
Well, it'll be the 20th anniversary of the pandemic.
And your handle will still be Van Can.
Of course it will. You know, I've had some really cool opportunities through work here to cover things like the Memorial Cup when it was here in 2016. I still, my backpack that I used for work is still the one I got from the Memorial Cup. You know, with the Rebels, as you know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the Canada Winter Games last year, that was amazing to cover. Um, so there has been some really cool things that I've gotten to do here
Yeah,
that are kind of in line with the Canucks dream. But
yeah.
yeah,
And I would assume, like, because your daughter is still young, that you're not going to pursue anything because fatherhood, being a dad, is so important that to give up any piece of that in order to go, like if you look at a Canucks schedule or something like that, probably isn't really non-pandemic schedule is probably not really conducive to being involved dad.
yeah, yeah. Like the people who do what my dream job is, they're on the road. They travel with the team. They're working. Not that I don't work late hours from time to time, but it's nothing. I don't, as far as I'm aware, I don't think it's quite as frequent as some of the guys and girls in the major markets who cover a hockey team or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is every second night. And they're, when I did the Rebels, you're at the rink until 9:30. You still got to write
Mm-hmm.
a game story, and then you got to get home, and
Yeah,
it's really late, and you've
yeah,
probably been working since fairly early in the day. So yeah, that's that kind of thing. When I do work a long day, it does kind of really limit the time that I have to spend with my kid, and that's she'll understand one day, but it does
yeah,
it's hard sometimes to have to tell her that daddy has to work, so you'll have to, she's
yeah.
it's just
Well,
it is what it is.
I can tell you, like, having been like a single mom or a solo mom for most of my kids' lives,
Mhm.
for the vast majority of it, that they remember how you make them feel. It's not about the bulk of time, it's about how they feel in the time they're with you. And my kids are all, I mean, I have a 19-year-old, a 17-year-old, a 15-year-old, lots of screw ups and all of that stuff, and not a lot of time for them while I was building businesses. But they do remember how you make them feel. So give yourself a little pass on that.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
I think the other thing is, when they get older, they'll appreciate how hard you worked when they were
Hmm.
younger.
And they'll learn so much from you, like that ethic. They'll definitely learn that stuff. They'll appreciate it. So yeah.
Mhm.
Murray's wondering. He says, he says, you seem like a good listener. Was this natural, or did you have to learn to listen?
um I've definitely become a better listener since I have uh spent more years in journalism. I don't know if I was necessarily a bad listener before, but I'm definitely better now. Because when you're when I'm interviewing people like you're doing right now, uh, I have to. I think one of the uh, it's important to know how to ask a good follow up question, and to be able to do that, you have to listen to what the person is saying. um, I sometimes I'll go into an interview with a list of set questions I want to ask, but I don't know what they're going to say necessarily that's going to make me think of something else. So if I want to catch, if somebody says something stupid or or the opposite, and I want to ask them something additional about that, well, I'm not going to be able to if I wasn't really listening to them.
So you're kind of describing just being flexible with how your style is. That you don't go in rigid. I just need to get these questions answered.
I mean, from time to time, right? But
Depends
it
on the
depends on the day. I'm
yeah.
kidding, but
I
mostly.
can think of some situations where you probably don't want to hang around and listen.
Yeah, there
Uh,
definitely have been.
yeah. So what do you like most about being a news writer? Somebody asks.
Um, well, like I said earlier, for those who maybe weren't tuned in at the time, I I've I've always enjoyed writing, going back into high school. Um, so writing is kind of a cathartic thing. Like I was really into, and I still have an anthology of poems that I wrote in grade 12. Uh, if I'd known this was going to come up, I probably would have found it so I could read something. But uh, I'm outside of news writing. I do enjoy writing of all kinds. And it's actually a goal of, I will answer the question, but it's actually a goal of mine to write a children's book in the next few years. But I really like being able to tell good news stories, ones that, and not just the fluffy, not just the really fluffy ones, but I really like to write stories that have an impact on people and make people think, maybe question how they've thought in the past.
Mhm.
If I can have that impact, I see that Nikki is watching,
Yeah.
and I think that's just a complete. Sorry, Nikki, I don't have my poem anthology with me, but I see Nikki, and she's the perfect example because her daughter.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. Jada, she started selling cupcakes a number of years ago, with proceeds going to the what was the SPCA here. It's now the Humane Society, and she's continued that. And I think we've covered it every year. First, it was just kind of, this kid is having a bake sale, to be honest,
Mhm.
and with money going to help animals. But
Mhm.
she is a prime example of a person out in the community, a young person, and I really love seeing young people have an impact on the world. And she's a perfect example of somebody who I love telling a story about, because she is a person who's going to go in the future and do great things based on
Mhm.
what she's doing now. And she's already having an impact. I mean, I don't remember the dollar amount, but she's raised like tens of thousands of dollars. And I think she's in high school or something.
I think she's in grade 6 right now, I'm pretty
Oh,
sure.
okay.
Grade, might be grade 7. She's
Okay.
just a kid.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, the heart she has is that kid is she's already changing the world. But yeah, this is a kid that's gonna go out there and
Yeah.
really do some stuff. What's been the coolest thing about watching Jada is how media savvy she's become over the
Yeah.
years.
And
Yeah.
they've increased their cupcake count, I think, too, over the
Mhm.
years. Like, I don't know how they make so many cupcakes, but
It's a group effort. Nikki says she's raised over $20,000.
that's awesome.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know she just finished a kindness. She just finished doing these kindness boxes too. This kid is just amazing. Anyway, go look up Jana Monologues.
Yeah.
Okay. Who influenced you, or who is influencing you right now?
Um, if we're talking about broadcasting, then
Let's talk about life. Who's influencing you
life.
right now?
Oh boy. Uh, well, I mean, okay. there's a few different ways we could go with this. Like I definitely follow a lot of fellow journalists who are in the bigger markets, like Janet French. I love her work in Edmonton. She's with CBC. Um, I I'm not sure how many Alberta viewers will be familiar with the name Squire Barnes, but he went to the same school as me, years and years and years and years before me, of course. But he's a long time sports guy on global television in Vancouver, um, and I, you know, influence is an interesting. That was the word you used, right? Influence.
Yeah,
Uh,
influence. Yeah.
my, you know, my parents definitely influenced me. My mom and my stepdad, and my dad passed away in 1997 when I was 8.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I have always tried to keep his influence as part of whatever I'm doing. So on a few different levels there,
Hmm.
those are the people who influenced me.
That is really cool and very well-rounded. You're a well-rounded person there, Josh.
Thank you.
Don't take my word for it. So your dad passed when you were 8.
Yeah.
That's got to impact your life quite a lot. When did your stepdad come in?
Uh, 2001. So 4 years later. Yeah. And I'm not bringing this up at in any way for pity or anything. Trust me. I'm just simply sharing. But he passed away on Boxing Day actually, and so it'll be 20. What is that? 23 years. This coming in about a month from now. Um, yeah, my stepdad has been. I think if there's anything I would want to say about this is just for other kids out there who are going through maybe something similar. Uh, there's a lot of unknowns. I had no idea. Not like I said, I was 8 when it happened, and until I was 15, maybe, I had no idea what the long term impacts were going to be. Like I finally realized when I was in my middle teens, oh, my dad's not going to be at my graduation, and my stepdad was, of course, but
Mhm.
and that was great, of course, but
It's just not the same though.
it, it's not the same. But I try to. I'm not full disclosure. I'm not really religious, but I do. I like to keep my dad in my mind and think and believe that he's helping me out from time to time. So I like to make sure that I'm making him proud.
What's your dad's name?
Uh, Gordon, which is my
Gordon. It's your middle name.
yeah.
Wow, we're learning. Now we're really getting into the goods. Now we know Josh's middle name.
Uh-oh, don't
I
steal
told
my
you you'd be fine.
yeah.
That's uh I know I have several friends whose parents have passed. Like for me, I met my stepdad when I was 22 and I'm 45, so that's 23 years. Um, and it's not the same as like my dad's still alive, but he's not really around. So it's not the same, but it is I'm so grateful for him as well. So
Hmm.
it's an interesting thing how our lives go in these weird directions and the pieces that we carry with us and how it forms us, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But anyway, moving on. All right, here's a tough question for you. Uh, how are you the bad guy sometimes?
Oh, well, I'm the fake news.
No.
So, I think I'm the bad guy sometimes it's all a matter of perspective, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have to ask hard questions. Um, Sometimes people don't like being asked hard questions,
Mm-hmm.
but that's my job. Um, so to them, I might be the bad guy,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, like with COVID, it's like, why are you so many? I couldn't put a percentage on it, but many people are constantly asking us, like, why do you have to keep reporting on this, or why can't you guys, why can't you 3-person newsroom report more good news stories? Well, frankly, we don't have the time or the
Yeah.
power. So I think if it's perspective is a big
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like, you gotta take a step back sometimes and realize us reporters, journalists, are not trying to be the bad guys, but sometimes we just have to be. But
Mm-hmm.
we're just trying to, at the end of the day, we're just trying to help, educate,
And because
inform.
you take a balanced approach, which I really very much appreciate about the organization you work for,
Hmm.
um, that means, like, do you have to ask, are you required to ask questions you don't want to?
Uh, Required. I mean, if I want to get the if I know there's a hard question to be asked and I want to get the full story, I have to ask the hard question.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if I don't, if I know there's a hard question to be asked and I don't ask it, then I'm not really being all that I can be as a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
The hard and I don't like asking the hard questions usually. It's kind of, it can be awkward because you
Mm-hmm.
know that the other person on the other end of the line, or if you're in person, you know that they're not gonna like the question. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes it harder. Okay, so I'm going to go to some of the questions in the comment section.
okay.
Paul Figler thinks that you're his that he's your ultimate influence. I think it's
Oh,
probably the opposite. Andreas says not all influences are created equal, Paul.
uh,
So
Paul's a good friend of mine, for full disclosure. So we influence each other.
yeah, I've seen some actually positive influences you've had on Paul. I've yet to see the opposite, Paul. I'm just joking.
He's influenced me positively.
All right. Nikki says not journalism related. Who's your favorite artist musically? Either someone alive or past, and don't say Bon Jovi.
Okay,
That's what Nikki says.
that's easy. And it's related to my dad as well, because I grew up listening to this person with him, um, and that's Brian Adams. Uh, I Yeah, I listen to Brian Adams when I have to get through hard times. I know that Brian Adams had a little bit of a controversial moment earlier this year,
Yeah, a little bumpy there.
which I wasn't too impressed about, to be honest. But
Mhm.
yeah, I am pretty well versed in the discography of Brian Adams.
So what's your like your I just have to dig deep Brian Adams song?
uh, well, 18 Till I Die is my favorite song. Um, I mean, there's so many good ones. There's so many good ones. Um, Everything I Do is such a good song. Um, yeah, I don't know if I could really, but 18 Till I Die, that album, which, if I'm not mistaken, came out in 96, or maybe it was 95, but that whole
Yeah.
album is so good. I can't, I'll listen to it side A and side B, and it's, I could listen to it on repeat for a whole day. And
That's awesome.
I can't not mention Michael Bublé, because a Vancouver guy, and I love him.
You're very BC loyal.
What can I say?
Yeah. My kid just moved to North Vancouver. I get it.
Is he going to become a Canucks fan?
uh,
That's the,
no.
that's the question that I get. Oh, are you going to become a Flames fan?
My kid grew up in Central Alberta and he's gay, and there is no way that he'll ever become a hockey fan. Period. But musical theater, maybe. He's definitely,
What's wrong with that?
yeah, he would totally, he'd be like, oh no, no hockey. I don't think he'd even go to a hockey game, honestly.
Really?
No.
Give it a try one day.
Yeah, he'd have to go with a very specific set of friends. All right. Somebody says, thanks for opening up about this. Good vibes from the best are always welcome. Good vibes from above are always welcome. I have reading issues, apparently. Andrea's wondering, Andrea didn't see the beginning of this interview. She's asking how you deal with negative comments.
Okay. Well, just to, I guess, to quickly rehash that, it's a matter of mental willpower to ignore them and just not let them get to you. Although I will admit, on more than one occasion, they have gotten to me. Um, but it's an ongoing battle. I mean, this COVID era that we're in is pushed a lot of us, myself included, to our limits. And when you're already dealing with everything, and then you have to read a negative comment, or usually where there's one negative comment, there's several more.
Mm-hmm.
It can just be like a punch to the gut, and
Yeah,
so it's easy to take it personally.
yeah. And very hard to leave behind.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I know in my job that we have to deal with the comment section quite often as well.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I do that I'm just going to throw out there, Andrea's familiar with this though, is that I have a group chat with two really tight friends. Like we use that group chat, and that's where we go to deal with, like the "Are you effing kidding me?" stuff that's happening. We go in there, we make each other laugh. There's comments about glitter, and then we move on, and it just kind of lets us drop it and then move on with all the rest. So
If you can have someone to vent to, that's the magic
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah. Nikki's laughing because she's one of them. Uh, she knows exactly what I'm talking about. And no, nobody can ever be allowed into that group chat. All right. What lesson? What lesson would you like to leave people with that you've learned in the last year?
In the last year.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. No, this is something I was thinking about today, actually. It's it's actually not a lesson that I learned in the last year, but I think it's incredibly applicable to the last year. When I was in grade 12 back in 06, 07, I had just an amazing opportunity. One day, it was the first week of school actually that year. A group of students and a couple of teachers, myself included, got to go into downtown Vancouver to the Orpheum Theater and see the Dalai Lama speak.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I've always remembered one thing that he said. It's not an actual quote, but it's the idea that he was trying to get across. And that is to not, instead of having pity, the better way to go is to have compassion. And I think this year and right in this very moment, we all need to have more compassion for people because we are just going through this for everybody who's on earth right now. This may very well be, we may all very well share the exact same hardest stretch of our lives,
Mm-hmm.
and this year, and who knows
Yes.
how long it could stretch into next year. But if we could all have more compassion And that applies to the mask debate. It applies to just accepting what is going on
Mhm.
and accepting that there's 540 people or so that have died in this province. Um, if we could have more compassion, I think we would be able to come out of this much stronger. Now
Mhm.
is that realistic to expect that we're all just going to have more compassion in our lives? I don't know, but
Yeah.
time will tell. But I think that's that could be the magic ingredient
Mhm.
to improving all of our, just the way that we all conduct ourselves, because
Yeah.
there's so much, if I can add, there's so much selfishness and not doing, what we could do to help other people, whether it's
Mhm.
pandemic related or otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much to it, that you're right. We are all sharing probably the hardest stretch of our lives. But our everyone's experience isn't the same. And so to assume your experience is the same as somebody else's is a fallacy. And also to understand that everyone deals with fear differently, and every single one of us is scared. And so some of us deal with fear by being really aggressive online, and some of us deal with it by picketing something, and some of us deal with it by being excessively kind, really leaning into the kind stuff, because we all have a different way of dealing with fear. I would just encourage people to take a look at how you're dealing with your fear and see how that impacts other people with that compassion piece attached to it. Because compassion doesn't generally develop until we've had a negative experience. And I would hate for it to be that we've all had a loss before we generate enough compassion
Hmm.
to change how this goes. So yeah, lots of rave reviews for you, Josh. Definitely have to have you back because there's a YouTube channel and an anthology of poetry to talk about.
Yes, and
So
there's IBD to talk about, and there's LGBT to talk about, and
there's
many
so
things.
much.